Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at our two upcoming winter storms. We do have a lot of severe weather that we're going to be watching for as well. The Storm Prediction Center has highlighted that area, and we are going to be taking a look at that. We touched on that yesterday, and we're going to touch on it a lot more today as well. We do expect a little bit more freezing rain with that major storm than we originally anticipated as well, and also more snowfall. So there is a lot to go over in today's video. We're going to get into it in just a moment. Alright, now before I get into this video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think that we will have more severe weather in the later portion of the month of February, or do you think this is going to be kind of an anomaly where this is a one-time thing we're going to see upcoming? Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now, in today's video, we're taking a look at the current radar first off. We have a lot going on inside this area, but really out west, there's not a lot going on yet. Now, that major storm that we're going to be watching for, so stay tuned if you are along the west coast, because we are going to see that storm dive down, a very strong storm, and then curve up through these regions. This means that all these areas that aren't seeing any precipitation right now, basically areas west of this point, will be seeing a lot of action over the coming week or so. So stay tuned for the model guidance portion, but for now, we're going to get into this radar. Let's move west. We do have some snowfall near Rapid City that we were seeing take place. That has really dissipated over time. Those are just some random snow showers. Those were a bit heavier here for a while, but they've really moved out by now. Now, as we dive down, we're going to see the snowfall diving down from Colorado and New Mexico down into mostly Texas and Oklahoma. This will eventually be our coastal storm that we're going to be watching for tomorrow kind of evening into tomorrow night for a lot of regions along the eastern seaboard, like I said. So this is going to be a storm that really wraps around a lot of portions of the United States, and it's going to be interesting to track. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Now, we have had some showers and definitely thunderstorms taking place in this region over the past few hours. Definitely some thunderstorms south of Dallas where we've seen these lightning strikes come in. Some of these are heavier at times, and they are quite slow moving compared to some of the other areas of precipitation we're taking a look at. So there could be some minor areas of flooding taking place with some of this. Now, oops, did not know that was on. Okay. Let's take a look at some of that lightning that took place, and it took place mostly in here. You'll see it build in. You'll see the little flashes in there. There it is. So there was a lot of flashes right near basically this general region here. These flashes are so little, but you might see them come in. I'm going to change that in the future to make those symbols a little bit more noticeable. And then once we're really in the thunderstorm season, we're going to need to make them a lot smaller. But generally, just to the east of Interstate 45 and along Interstate 45 between Fairfield and Buffalo, actually, we saw some of that take place as well. But very interesting this time of year to see that taking place. Now, as we move up towards Chicago, kind of Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, we have had some snowfall at points for this region, especially south of Chicago, near Fort Wayne as well. We've had quite a bit of snowfall, maybe accumulating a dusting to an inch or two in there. Those bright whites are quite heavy, and we saw a lot of that again in this region for a while, so wouldn't be surprised that there is some accumulation, especially right in here is kind of where I would indicate that the most snowfall has taken place. And then as we move along the eastern seaboard, you can see there is a bit of energy here where we've had some rainfall and some spotty snowfall for mountainous regions. That's really dissipated over the morning hours as we've drawn closer and closer to sunrise. And I'm sure that there's going to be pretty minimal amounts of rainfall around by time most everybody is waking up. Now, one more thing to note here that I just found interesting as I was looking kind of westward is we definitely have a lot of lake effect snowfall taking place up here in the Upper Peninsula, and I do see some of it down there in the Lower Peninsula as well. But this area has been just persistent. Look at that. It doesn't even move. And it's been interesting. This central, kind of north-central region of the Upper Peninsula has gotten a lot. I would say this area has gotten the most lake effect snowfall since I've started doing these daily radar updates, which I've enjoyed so much, by the way, guys. I made this switch about 2 months ago, probably. And just getting to see the daily weather every single day that's ongoing and break it down with you guys, I feel like it makes me more versed in what's going on around the nation, which is really, really awesome just to get that information even just for myself, but not only that, but give it to you guys as well. I wanted to touch on one thing in a zoomed out view here. This, like I said, is dived down through the Rockies, so it's dived down to this region. We're going to see a lot of this energy kind of mix with this one, so we're going to see these two areas kind of combine, and then we're going to see this area head off the coast like this. We are going to see some of this precipitation linger in this region as well. And then somewhat of a snowstorm is going to take place in this region. Very light amounts down here, much more marginal. And then up here, it looks like we could have some heavier amounts. So that's what we're going to need to get into in the modeled guidance, but we're also going to take a look at that central United States major winter storm, as well as the severe weather in the deep south and the big-time storminess out west as well. We have a lot to go over today, guys. All right, now here we are taking a look at that European model. We're also going to take a look at the GFS model. We've been doing really well actually comparing the two models because I think it gives you guys a much different perspective into, first off, the challenges that forecasters face when there's so many different opinions out there according to the computer guidance. But not only that, we also get to give you guys multiple opinions so you can see what is possible, really. Even though one model isn't calling for it, that doesn't mean another isn't calling for it. So let's take a look here. This is our storm that we were indicating was in this region, and we're going to see it catapult offshore, kind of like this. It's going to horseshoe around. So let's watch that play out. There we go. So our low pressure system is somewhere about right here, and this is that area of precipitation I was trying to indicate to you guys. This is going to eventually slide down for my southeastern Virginia folks, my local folks. This will slide down and bring some snowfall, as you can see by that point. So this will reach the coast for a lot of people around in here. Around when you're watching the Super Bowl Sunday night, which is really wild. So that commute back home, if you're with somebody else or if you're out at a venue, you might want to pay attention to the weather because that could cause some road issues depending on how heavy that snowfall is for some folks. Now, as we move on a little bit later in the pattern, this is when things get a little interesting. You can tell nothing's going on for the West Coast, stays a little quiet. This is when things begin to get interesting for you West Coast folks. Washington, Oregon, starting to get some precipitation here by Monday morning. And we're going to watch this energy dive down. So let's watch this play out real quick. We're going to watch it dive down the West Coast. And this does, by the way, bring a trough to the western United States, a bit of a trough. There's a 998 millibar low pressure system. It's come in about like this. And now what we're going to see is it's going to wrap around. It's going to come underneath, and it's going to take a track something like this, according to the models. This is a little bit longer out, so we really see some disagreement on the exact track. But we see a lot of snowfall, by the way, up here for the Rockies and also for the Cascades and the Sierra Nevadas. So both of those regions seeing quite a bit of snowfall. And then we're going to see the storminess build in here for a lot of the plains as that storm moves up. We see elongated area of snowfall for this region. This is very similar to a storm we just had about a week ago. We see the freezing rain now being indicated here on the southern end for areas like Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, northern Indiana, and portions of Michigan potentially as well. So we'll take a look at the freezing rain forecast. Now, day one of our severe weather risk is going to be sometime in here. I think Wednesday is going to be our first day, and it's going to be mostly an area like this. So let's watch the CAPE. Convective available potential energy. This is thunderstorm fuel or food. We actually have to switch it. Yeah, it's on the 0Z. Good. Okay. Wednesday, yeah. So we get an elevated area here Wednesday night into Thursday of about 1,000 CAPE there. So we're watching for that. Here is the Storm Prediction Center, like I mentioned, real quickly. So this is day 5. So this is going to be for Wednesday into Wednesday night. We have a 15% chance of severe weather within 25 miles of a given location there for Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. So they are indicating the severe weather that we were kind of spotting a couple of days ago. And then day 6 as well. Here you can see it moves further east, and we have a larger region, but Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama there. And day 7, they say predictability too low, but I definitely think that I'm eyeballing this eastern region, probably the southern half of that, for some potential severe weather. Probably nothing major. Probably not even as major as day 5 and day 6. Day 6 is really the day I'm watching for this region. I will say that. Day 5 could have some potential as well, but day 6 looks a little bit more elevated, so we're going to be watching for that also. Now back to the model guidance. Actually, that's the GFS. Back to the model guidance. Here we are taking a look at the Cape, like I said. So let's just move on to day 6. So that was day 5. By the time we're reaching Thursday, day 6, you can see the storm moves up into here. We have heavy snowfall up above, up here, north of that low pressure system. There is a cold front underneath. Let me actually just draw out what the surface pattern probably looks like here. We probably have that going on with a cold front underneath. Actually, that's too dark. Oh gosh, I've got myself all messed up now, guys. Okay, low pressure system. Let's use a lighter blue. Cold front just like that. So we have cold air behind there. And then typically what's going on here, it might not be perfect, but there's probably a warm front right about there. So what's going on here is we're seeing this warm air shoving up like this, pushing this boundary. So probably a really warm day along the eastern seaboard there. And then we have this cold air. Let me pick the blue one. This cold air shoving in behind it. And then the severe weather takes place in where I'm about to draw in the yellow, right out ahead of that cold front, where conditions are very warm and that cold air is about to slam into it. So that's where we're seeing the severe weather. That's the surface pattern here. And up above, we do get that freezing rain and snowfall, like I mentioned. Now, let's move back to the Cape. Let's see what the convective available potential energy looks like on Thursday. So it's about the same, about around 1,000 maybe. Which is sufficient, especially this time of year. You usually have very, very high shear, which causes wind and tornado types of severe weather. Cape is really what allows for those thunderstorms to take place. So the fact that we're seeing any within that yellow region indicates that there is a chance of thunderstorm and severe weather development. The higher the Cape, the more you start to see things like very strong supercells, very high precipitation, and very large hail. Usually it takes a lot of Cape to see hail, not always though. So we're looking for hail in these very high Cape amounts down here towards the bottom. And towards the bottom, we're looking at thunderstorms, maybe some wind-driven type thunderstorm threats, and tornadoes are also possible in lower Cape severe weather types. That's just my 2 cents, though. That's really like what I've usually observed. Now, as we move on with this storm does intensify. 994 millibar low pressure center by this point. That's moved up into here. I'm going to see it move out kind of. Over time. So heavy snowfall. And look at this back end snowfall for Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan. It's now 988, so it's intensifying as it draws closer to the eastern seaboard. And then it moves out innocently, kind of leaving a trough behind, just like that. And probably very potent air right here. As far as total snowfall, you can see it leaves behind a ton of snowfall in its wake because all of this basically is from that one storm. So that is a ton for a lot of different regions. But if you're anywhere in the grays, I need you guys to work with me here and find your own location because I would have so many different locations to talk about here. So if you're anywhere in the grays, you're at a dusting, if anything, maybe an inch. In the blues, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples will be 6 to 10. Pinks will be 10 to 20. And then pastels will be 20 inches plus. We see a lot of those pastels up here for areas like Michigan and up in through Canada, definitely. But a little bit less pastel showing up today. Now, freezing rain. We do see anywhere from about a glaze to maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch at this point for these regions. So we're going to need to watch for a potential ice storm again as well, unfortunately. And this model's even indicating that some of these areas get over an inch somewhere, probably up here in Canada actually, but maybe even down here as well near Michigan. So a lot of snowfall, a lot of freezing rain now expected with this snowstorm as well, which just makes things even more interesting. Now let's watch the GFS model. First off, storm number 1 here. As we see it develop, much heavier snowfall makes its way down further south. So the GFS is a little bit more bullish with this storm. So we watch it move in. So let's move on to the east and just zoom in and take a look at the total snowfall real quick. And then we're going to take a larger view of our major storm. So this one indicates a much larger area of 2 to 6 inches here in the blues, but also a larger area of about an inch down here. Again, Super Bowl night. This is going to lead towards some pretty nasty impacts for a lot of folks. Purples are going to be 6 to 10, so we have a couple spots of that as well. I would say minor to moderate snowstorm, obviously, with this one. Nothing crazy, obviously, from what you can tell, 6 to 10 inches for Virginia is a little bit more on the moderate to major side, but for southern New England, that's not going to be too major at all. 2 to 6 up here is a much more moderate snowstorm, and then about an inch is going to be a minor to moderate snowstorm for southern Virginia. Although compared to what we have dealt with in southern Virginia, this is going to feel like a walk in the park, really, so far this winter. Now, let's go ahead and zoom back out, entire United States here. And let's get our precipitation type back on screen. So we see our storm dive down, and it's going to do a horseshoe. See the severe weather building in. Same old storm here. We see a lot more ice here on the GFS model. A lot less snowfall. This one has a major ice storm. It moves up and look a lot more precipitation down here on this model. So potentially some severe weather, like I mentioned, down for that southeastern corridor. The trough here is much more major that gets left behind. I will say that. It looks a lot worse than we saw on our European model. And then it moves out, and really we enter into a quieter pattern. We'll talk about that in a sec, and we're going to touch more on that in the coming days. But total snowfall here, let's make sure it's all said and done. Again, dusting, if anything, in the grays, 2 to 6 there in the blues, 6 to 10 there in the purples, and then 10 to 20 there in the pinks. Pastels would be 20 inches plus, but we don't have any of that over the United States, only up there in Canada. So mostly 10 to 20 inches of snowfall, which is definitely a major snowstorm, looking at 1 to 2 feet of snowfall. It's major no matter how you write it up, really. Let's take a look at the freezing rain real quickly. And we get a little bit less here, actually, on the GFS, but it's much more widespread. So, again, in the beginning of the storm, we saw tons of that freezing rain coming down. I will say this is a lower resolution model, so we might just be seeing a little bit less pixels here, which is causing some of the issues. We do have some spots of about a quarter to half an inch around. You can see those dots all just scattered in there, and then a much wider area there in Michigan. This would be definitely a better solution if this model was correct, but we need to see how things progress moving forward with this freezing rain threat. Now, I wanted to do one thing for you guys as kind of like a bonus here. We're just going to go into the extended range here on the GFS because I wanted to touch on the fact that it's going to be a much quieter pattern. Basically, that major storm comes to an end around the 18th. And then we're going to left with not a lot going on all the way through the 20th. So we're going to get a good 2 days of quiet, and then we have a storm here. We have a storm brewing here, so then things get all sorts of active all of a sudden, both corners there of the United States. This one looks like it might be diving down again, so we're going to need to track this. But also a coastal storm, so we have to watch this one coming up the coast. Will there be more cold air than this? This model says no, but that could be a snowstorm if there's a trough in place. But generally, we see this storm dive down. Let's see what it does. We're going to see this for the first time together, guys. Look at that. Same exact track. We see it dive down and head up. Are we in a pattern that just is very sufficient for this type of storm? We're going to have to watch and see. Is that another one? Yeah, that is another one. Kind of different. But yeah, we have multiple storms to track. It looks like after that major storm is done, we're going to have a quiet period for a couple of days. Saturday, Sunday. Might be pretty nice. Then Monday, things start getting really crazy, and it looks like from the 20th all the way till the end of February, we get back into an active pattern, which is very different than how we've been seeing things go. It's been pretty quiet so far in February. There's been a few things that have been active, but really it's been quiet for the most part. And then we're going to get into a quiet period again, but it looks like we could get active to close out February, although it is the very, very long range, like I mentioned. Anyway, for today's confidence tab, we are at a 4 out of 6 today. I haven't moved up yet just because there's still some uncertainty with both storms, really. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, when do you think we could see our next snowstorm after this upcoming major one? And James Moore said, I believe we will go through a quiet period after these two snowstorms, just like I just said. But we will have a minor one next weekend for the East Coast. And that's probably James Moore there indicating that storm that we just saw in the GFS in the longer range, which is pretty interesting as well. For today's Patron Highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our Platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Nagel, Larry LePan, Vandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, and Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I would also like to thank our Diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Kodalasa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Khaleesi also. I would also like to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.